Hi there, it's Nicole here for Honeybee Stamps, and today I'm going to share this card that features masking and stenciling a background. In fact, everything but the adorable little candy heart accents is flat. So this is going to be a super easy card to mail. In addition to the front of the card, I stamped some more greetings and some little hearts on the inside. We're going to start by stamping the two foxes from the Feelin Foxy stamp set. These are adorable. They are amazing size, so they're nice, substantial images. It's one of my favorite things about Honeybee is that they're nice and big, easy to color. They are just very, very prominent and so wonderful. I am using a stamp press to stamp my images. I'm also using an ink for Copic coloring since I'm going to use Copics today. If you were going to use a different coloring medium, colored pencils or something else, you can use whatever ink is right for that. I'm really eyeballing it here. I'm going to be inking a landscape, and then I will be inking and stenciling the top of the card, the background, with a previously released Honeybee Stamps Falling Heart stencil from the Fall Showers stencil collection. Now, once I have my foxes both stamped, I do need masks for these. And so I've got a little bit of masking paper here. And I'm simply just going to stamp both of my images on the masking paper, cut them out. I did that off camera to save a little bit of time. These images, again, because they're not terribly small, they were really easy to cut out, which I really appreciate. I'm going to pull off the backing paper, place those masks right down there, and then take some Post-it tape and use that as a mask along that bottom edge of my card. And this is 1-inch Post-it tape, and I'm simply lining it up with the bottom of the panel. This is Neenah's Smooth White cardstock. This is what I like to use for Copic coloring. Because of that, I am inking the background, but sometimes regular distress inks can be a little tricky. In fact, I almost started with my regular distress ink before I realized that I really needed to use Distress Oxide ink. I even had my Distress Oxide ink foam on my ink blending tool, so I simply grabbed that, and I am using Candied Apple to ink up the background. One of my favorite things to do is to do a tone-on-tone stenciled background, and in order to get this, I am inking up my background, kind of going dark to light on the background with the Candied Apple Distress Oxide ink, and it's going to go on smoothly. Where Distress ink, it's a little bit trickier. I tend to not have the patience for trying to get it to work really well on the Neenah Smooth White cardstock. With the Distress Oxides, it works great. Once I have a seamless blend, I will grab that Falling Hearts stencil, and I'm going to be pretty aggressive with applying that ink through the stencil, especially at the top part. I can lighten it up a little bit down near the bottom, but this is going to give me that fabulous tone-on-tone Falling Hearts background. So there is what my top of my little background looks like. I'm simply going to flip my Post-it tape up, cover that bottom edge of the red background, and take Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink and create my landscape or grassy bottom down here. Again, just working to get a nice seamless inking. Pull up my masking tape. I can go ahead and get rid of that. Pull off my masks. And I am ready to start coloring in my background with some Copic markers. And my mask did not want to come off very well. Now I'm going to start by using the flicking or feathering technique to create little tufts of grass along the bottom edge of my card. This is going to give a little bit more texture and interest, especially for a card that is completely one layer. Then I'm going to go in and grab some of my yellow-red colors in yellow-red 24 and 27, plus the earth tone in E39. and start coloring in my foxes. And I am going to speed through this pretty quick. Both are colored exactly the same. I did leave all of it in the video. I just sped it up a bit, but really quick coloring. With images this size, the coloring tends to be, for me, a lot easier maybe. I don't know if I want to say easier. Quicker, even though the images are bigger, simply because I don't have to be quite as careful to maybe not get my marker outside the lines. So if that is ever an issue for you, try honeybee stamps simply because the size of them is nice and substantial. I just love that those two foxes take up so much room on this design that they're so prominent. Now, once I have all my blending done, I am going to take my darkest marker, the E39, and add a little dotting detail. And instead of leaving the stomach and the tip of the tail white, I am instead using some earth tone colors in E000, E00, and E11. And that's going to give me a nice little pop of color, but it's not overwhelming. A little R20 for the insides of the ears if needed, and E49 for the noses. However, I want those noses to really pop. So in a second, we're going to be adding some white pin detail to both images that are really going to just bring them to life. Just like before, I'm using YR24, 27, and E39 for the majority of the fox. I just think their faces are so cute. I think the foxes are my favorite from the release. I always hesitate to say which one is my favorite because as soon as I use the next stamp set, it's my favorite. But I really do love these foxes, and I could see them used in so many different ways. So here's that E000, E00, and E11 again, as well as a little R20. Get that all blended out. I'll need to go back and add the dotting detail with E39 too. At first I forgot it. A little R05 for the inside of the mouth. Now I'm going to add just a tiny bit of shadow with some cool gray markers. And I'm using C4. I think it's a little dark, but I also want it to be prominent. Not prominent, but I want it to kind of help make the images pop off the background, I guess is what I want to say. Anywhere that I feel like the line is just a little too dark, I'm going to take my colorless blender and lightly go over that, and it's going to soften the edges just enough that I think it looks a lot better. I'll also take cool gray markers in C4 and C2, as well as the colorless blender, and add just a nice little bit of shadowing down here underneath the foxes on the grass. So it gives the illusion of a little bit of shadow. Now I'm going to take my white pen and I'm going to just draw in some little highlight areas kind of all over, following the line of the stamp just inside that black line. I will do that on the darker areas of the fox, the lighter areas of the fox. Over the noses, I will add some little highlights. And the eyes on the fox with his eyes open, I colored around those purposely when I was coloring, but I generally like to go over eyes on anything with a black jelly roll pen, and kind of near the end I decided I really needed to do that with him as well because I think it makes the eyes pop even more. So I will go over them with the black jelly roll pen and add in the white after the black has dried. So we'll do that here in just a second. I am going to take the sentiment from Ridiculously Happy, which again, I don't want to say that this is my favorite, but this little teeny tiny sentiment stamp set is awesome. I could see this greeting used all the time, as well as the additional greeting that says, "You're my favorite person," that I'm going to stamp on the inside of my card. So I'm stamping my greeting on the top portion of my background panel with Versamark ink. I will heat emboss this with white embossing powder. I want it to really pop off the background. I thought black ink would be a little too dark. especially because I knew I wanted to add in some of the candy hearts in white. The white color is called Be Mine. And I thought that it would look better, and I'm really glad I went with the white. So I'm just going to heat emboss this. Not to mention the sentiment is nice and prominent as well. It really fills out the rest of the card design. Easy to read, super fun fonts. There is what my greeting looks like. So I'll go ahead and get that out of the way. Here's that black jelly roll pen, and it wasn't wanting to work. I'll go over the eyes. Just make sure you let them completely dry before you go back with your white pen and add those highlights back in. I'm using Ranger Multi-Matte Medium with a fine tip applicator to glue these little candy hearts down in place. Now I glued one onto the front-facing fox. I used the color Kiss Me. It's kind of a pinkish red color. In fact, I think it coordinates really nice with Candied Apple Distress ink. And then I'm simply adding in all these candy hearts. I thought I was going to try to implement some sequins too, but I decided I didn't like them. I thought it was a little bit too much. So before that glue dries, I am going to pop that off and replace it with one of the little white hearts. They're almost like little hearts cut out of, I don't know if it's foam or what it is, but I am addicted to these. I think they are fabulous. There's a pink, a white, and a red. They are amazing in shakers. They're amazing glued over a background like I'm doing here. They're just the perfect size. The shape is awesome. I love little accents like this that can be used for so many different things. So I'll glue a few more of these in place, and then we will work on the inside of the card, making it kind of match and coordinate with the front of the card. Brings the design and the feel from the front of the card when you open it up and brings it to the inside. It gives it a great finished look, which I absolutely love. So I'm going to just take my tape runner, put some glue on the front of a top fold card base, pop my panel in place. It is A2 sized, meaning my background was trimmed to 5.5 inches by 4.25 inches. It's going to take up the entire background. We'll take the rest of the greetings from Ridiculously Happy. And here's my white pen. My eyes have dried now, so I added those highlights back in before I forget. And I'm going to use the stamp press or stamp platform again. I thought I might just try to stamp the sentiments on the inside of the card. If I'm not having to do any Copic coloring, I generally like to use VersaFine ONYX black ink. It is a nice black pigment ink. It stamps beautifully. You generally don't have to stamp it more than once. But then I was afraid that I would mess up my card, so I did go ahead and use the stamp platform with that ink just in case. But for the hearts, the solid hearts I'm going to stamp on the inside, I did just use an acrylic block in the Candied Apple Distress Oxide ink. I stacked the sentiments with, there are actually 3 different pieces, the You're My, and then Favorite, and then Person. So you can kind of stack those however you need to. I think it would be awesome to stack them 1, 2, 3 if you needed to, depending on what fits your card design. And just make sure that the inks are getting inked up really well, stamping those hearts. And that will finish off this Ridiculously Happy stenciling and masking card featuring new stamps from the Honeybee Stamps February release. Thanks for joining me today for this card featuring stenciling, masking, coloring, and adorable new images from Honeybee Stamps. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Honeybee Stamps that you might be interested in. Please subscribe for weekly card making and stamping videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.